Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 Subaru Outback Wagon, we're going to be checking out the Swagman XTC2 tilting platform style bike rack. So my first impressions of the rack on the back of the Subaru, I think it's a good fit. You know, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and this is a really good economical way to be able to carry around a couple of bikes. You know, and probably one of my favorite parts about this setup is the fact that this rack can tilt even when you have your bikes loaded up, right? And that's not uncommon by any means, but it's something you don't really see a lot on more affordable type bike racks like our Swagman here. And so what that'll allow you to do when you have your stuff loaded, this will fold down out of the way. So there's just a little pin and clip mechanism down here. Pull that out, and definitely want to kind of support the rack while you're doing this. That'll let you swing this down and still get in and out of the back of your Subaru. So if you happen to forget something, you need to get in here, or get gear, whatever the case may be, it's not a big deal. Tilt it down, you don't have to unload your bikes and mess with all that. With this rack, you can carry 2 bikes, and it's going to have a weight capacity of 35 pounds per bike. So keep that in mind, but you know, the vast majority of bikes out there should be able to work just fine with it. Something I do want to note, the way it's going to secure the bike, it has this frame hook, and it's going to apply downward pressure on the frame, kind of forcing the wheels into these cradles. Right? And each one's going to have a strap for a little bit of extra security there. And believe it or not, I mean, it's solid. You know what I mean? The bikes, it's moving around a little bit, but it's actually moving on the whole rack. And even with super high-end racks, it does the same thing. With that said, being that it does have frame contact, if you happen to have a carbon frame bike, probably don't want to use this, or you know, anything along those lines. Just think about that. But the way you can get this off, though, when you're ready to go ride or unload, I suggest starting with the straps down at the wheels. Just pop them off. These are pretty thick straps too. Not the best that I've seen, nor the worst, but somewhere in the middle. Same deal with this one. And then people kind of have their own ways of doing things here when it comes to this part. And I guess it would really just depend on the style of your bike or whatever. What I like to do is remove the frame hook, and you want to be holding your bike when you're doing this. And some people can just slide it out like that, you know. I like to fold this center part down though. So there's a little pin here. If you pull that out, swing that down, and just gives you a lot more room. So that's how I like to do it. You're able just to pop this off here. When you're all done, I'll show you some here. If you put the center mass like this, put your frame hook back on. You know, these are adjustable. The wheel cradles are adjustable too. You got these knobs you can loosen up and, you know, slide them how you need to accommodate for different wheelbases or better positioning or whatever you need to do there. But one of the things I really like is this rack is pretty lightweight. There's not a whole lot to it, you know. And so for those of you that don't really ride all that often, if this is something you're only going to break out a few times a year, you don't have a huge heavy rack to try to deal with, and the fact that this stores up nicely too. So it's kind of a suitcase style, where you have a pin and clip just like our center section there, and when you pull that out, it folds up nice and slim. Lock those back in. And so in the off season, or when you're not riding, when you want to store this thing, you know, it's a good size. You can put this in a closet, or kind of out of the way. You know, it's not a fixed, big, huge platform style rack that's going to take up a ton of space. If it were me and I just had the rack on the back, the Subaru, and really wasn't going to load my bike up for a couple days or something, and didn't feel like, you know, pulling the rack out and everything, I would probably drive around with it with these folded down, you know, and probably the center mass folded down too. That way it's not really interfering with your back windows so much. Wouldn't interfere with your license plate and your backup camera nearly as much. But you know, it's perfectly fine to drive around with it like this too, if you want to. That's just my thought here. I'll go ahead and fold this back down though, and give you a measurement here. And this will be in regards to how much space it's going to add to the back of your Subaru. The furthest point will probably be here. If I go from the bumper to it, it's about 22.5 inches. So if maybe you want to load your bikes up the night before, kind of have them ready to go and try to figure out if you're going to be able to pull into your garage or something, that's where that measurement could come into play. But being pretty compact, probably won't run into too many issues there. As far as your ground clearance goes, the shank here that plugs into the hitch is going to have a slight rise in it, so it'll buy you a little bit more space. And this really shouldn't be a huge deal on these Outbacks. You know, they all sit up relatively high off the ground. But in case you're wondering, this will probably be the lowest point. And of course, you know, I'm taking into consideration the lift that we're parked on here today. And it'd be about 16 inches if you were on, you know, flat ground. So high enough up to where you really don't need to worry about going up steep hills or backing out of driveways and making contact with the rack. The rack is going to work with pretty much any type of trailer hitch. We have a draw tight hitch on our Subaru today, just fine. So you can use it with the 2" by 2" openings, which are real common. But if you happen to have the smaller 1¼ by 1¼ hitch or another vehicle that has that size, you can take that little sleeve off and use it with that size hitch too. It's going to come included with an anti-rattle bolt, and what that does is it takes all the slop and play out of the connection point there. So it's going to help keep the ride a little bit more quiet. So say if you're going over bumps and stuff and hitting it, the rack isn't going to be clunking around in the hitch making a bunch of noise. Aside from that, that's really all there is to it. You know, if you come to figure out that you're wanting to kind of go a step up from this, the Rocky Mounts monorail makes one very similar, but with it, it's a little more user-friendly, easier to use, more versatile as far as what types of bikes you can use with it, and things like that. Overall, just a little more of a premier type rack, so you can always check into that. But with that one, you know, it doesn't fold up as compact and everything as this. So if that's really what you're looking for, that's what's important to you, the storage, how lightweight it is, things like that, then this is one you really can't go wrong with. But I think that'll about do it for a look at of the Swagman XTC2 tilt platform style bike rack on our 2024 Subaru Outback Wagon.